All righty, here we go. We are live. And all right, we've already got folks from around the world: Dallas, Tanzania, New York City. Awesome, awesome, very exciting. So glad that you guys
Righty,
can
here
come
we
and join
go. We
us.
are live, and all right,
Oh, wait, I need to set something up real quick because there's some people who are not going to find this link unless I put it here. So bear with me for one little thing that I forgot. All right, there we go. That'll make it easier for some folks who went to my website to find out where we are. Folks from London and Prague, two of my favorite cities. I So thank you guys for joining us for this chat. Um, I we are all coming from a place. All three of us are doing important work with helping people with difficult things, and creativity has definitely played a role in all of that. The uh, the guiding force behind this call is my friend Melanie Mantenieks. I may have just butchered your last name. So did I get
Okay.
it right? um, and I just had this great idea about having a chat about people moving from performing arts and creative endeavors into healing work. And so here we are. And I want to start by everyone, just for a moment, everyone go ahead and close your eyes, take a deep breath. And just to take a moment to get settled, because we all have a lot going on, especially during the holidays. So just for a moment, give yourself permission to follow your breath through your body. Allow yourself to get centered and grounded so you can really allow yourself to be here with us, with all of us joining in from around the world. I see Virginia, Newfoundland, Sweden, and just giving yourself permission to be here. Take a deep breath, open your eyes. And before we dive into it, so I'll have each of my friends here tell just a brief intro and just a little bit about yourself and the move, creativity and what you're up to with helping people. So, Melanie, why don't you start?
Sure. And hi, everyone from around the world. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you and with Jim and Brad. My name is Melanie Mantenieks, but you can use any version of my last name you want. I've heard them all, no problem. I'm a Latvian American, so I grew up with kind of two different backgrounds at the same time, American and European. And I love to learn about all cultures. So this is fantastic that this is global today. I started out in the corporate world, and but I've always had a creative side and a humanitarian side. And I thought, well, I'll just do those outside of my corporate job. But the older I get, and the more things have happened over the years, I gravitated more and more towards creativity and the healing arts. So at present, I am a trauma relief trainer and was trained by Dr. James Gordon from the Center for Mind Body Medicine and his colleagues at the start of the Ukrainian war. And I became trained in trauma relief, specifically in a program for Ukraine. But I've since expanded my practice, and now I am leading groups for animal rescuers and others, including and others facing hard times. I'm also a tutor for Ukrainian children because I feel very close to folks going through war, as I am the daughter and granddaughter of World War II survivors. So that kind of gives a little bit of a background in how I got involved, but how I got to know Brad. I started doing his EFT videos years ago, and then the pandemic hit, And then I lost my aunt, my father, my cousin, and my stepfather in a relatively short period of time. And so I started doing Qigong and Brad's EFT videos. And then more recently, I started doing Jim's sound healing. And so I've also incorporated some of what Jim and Brad teaches into my practice as well. And that's been very beneficial professionally and personally.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
And thank you for the important work that you're doing with folks in really challenging situations.
Thank you. And you and I, Brad, we did a video back in 2023 for
Yeah.
the Syrian people, Turkish people, and Ukrainians. So we were able to co-create something that I hope was very healing for a lot of people. So thank you for that.
Of course, of course. And Mr. Donovan,
Yeah. Nice to see everybody. My name is Jim Donovan, and currently I'm up at my university job at St. Francis University here in Pennsylvania in the States. Here, I was contracted to create something new that didn't exist before. And what I came up with was this program called Music and Wellness that I teach to really any of the students that are interested, but I end up with a lot of health science kids coming through. And I teach them the intersection between music and healing. We look at evidence-based practices. We do lots of work with gaining the knowledge, but also applying it so that these young people that are coming through with all the anxiety and the different social challenges that they have a different place to sort of gather around. And we use music as that place so that we can get into some things where we get to meet each other and we learn how to make eye contact, like some of the really basic things that a lot of us take for granted that a lot of the folks who've come through since COVID have had some challenges with. So we are actively working that stuff. Back before I was working here, I was in a band. We were like a one-hit wonder. Our band was called Rusted Root, and we have a song called "Send Me on My Way." If you go onto YouTube and you put that in, you'll find it. It's there, pretty easy to find. So I'm a performer. I've been performing music for the last 30 years. I still play, I still write, all that good stuff. But I'm really interested in, in the sort of the last phase of my lifetime to do something that's really meaningful to me and hopefully meaningful for all of you today. In that I've kind of figured out that my role here is to help people learn how to reduce their own suffering. Like if I encapsulated everything that I do, it's that. And so hopefully today we'll get into some ways that we can do that. And if if there's three people here that have all kinds of really good things to share with people. So if you find something today, make sure you share it with people. Okay, that's a big important thing.
please
Let's
and
go.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the world could use some healing. And so grateful to all of you that are joining us live for this, and those of you who will be watching the replay. Thank you for being willing to take the time to look into that healing work, clearing the stress and the suffering, because as you set it free from yourself, one, everything's energy. We're all connected. So as you release it from yourself, you're releasing it from the collective whole. But it also changes the way that you show up for the world. And yeah, and all
Great
three
point.
of us will be doing a demonstration of healing techniques. So it won't just be us chatting. You'll get to have that experience. But this is a really interesting thing that Melanie had the idea to have us discussing about um, coming from creative endeavors, because there's a huge amount of creativity in healing work. I mean, that's why it's called the healing arts. It is an art form, and each of us has studied and spent some time in different art forms, and that brings it in one way or another. Certainly, Jim is a musician. Sound healing, it's very much in there. There's with making videos, my theatrical background. Melanie was certainly with working with people, and also the corporate talks that you give, the improv, and all those different things. having that creative background puts us into a very good place to be able to share the message. But also creativity is something that we want to encourage folks to look at in their own lives as well, because just doing some kind of creative endeavor is healing as well. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So your thoughts on that?
Well, that's what I wanted. I think my goals for the discussion were, to feature both of your impressive careers. You've done such great work, and also talk about how you gravitated from creative to healing. But also, as you were saying, how healing and creativity is kind of like a back and forth kind of thing. It doesn't just go from one direction to the other. And you don't have to be an expert in the creative arts or in the healing arts to learn both or benefit from both. And I think that's why it's such a unique, interesting situation we have here, because initially I reached out to both of you for specific reasons, but even just as we're talking now, the connection between our goals are really close. Jim was saying he wants to reduce suffering. That was one of my goals for this talk too. We're about in the same, we're the Gen X boomer representatives here, but I think my goal for this talk is to help make the path easier for the younger generations, and then bring healing and empowerment to the older generations, and then creativity and healing to all the generations. And also discuss, how if do the healing arts, you might find yourself going for a creative career or going for something completely different. If you use the healing arts and creativity in your daily life or a daily practice, as I do both Jim and Brad's videos every day, I've now used that as consistent practice to start my mornings. I think you can make better decisions from your gut, like what's intuitively right for you. And as we've all been through stuff, and the world and country is going through a lot of stuff right now, I think the timing is also great for this call globally. So we can all do this together and then go forward into the new year, not trying to fix everything, but just releasing and creating and going forward.
Yeah.
When I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking about a lot of my the older folks that I work with. So I work in university, and then I do workshops and retreats out in the world. And one of the things I come across are people that are very interested in music. They're very interested in making things, but they have this idea, and I think probably it came from someone saying something to them one time, that if they're not really good at the thing, whatever the thing is, singing, drawing, painting, then they shouldn't.
Yes.
And that's really like it's in the States anyway. Uh, a lot of our early music systems were like that. They would test for aptitude,
Yeah.
at second grade, which is kind of ridiculous. And so a lot of folks, they put down creativity. I don't mean like make fun of it, but they just lay it down and don't consider it as a possibility because of the worry that my voice isn't good enough, or whatever. But the truth is, and I think we all kind of share this, just knowing these two a little bit, is that creativity is your birthright. If you have a compulsion, or you feel compelled, I should say, to make something, you definitely should. If you think about it, we are the bridge between wherever the heck ideas come from and the planet. Like, we're the thing that's in the middle of that. And without us, all these things that you look around in your room right now, if you just look at all the objects that are here, you'll notice that every one of those was an idea. Somebody had to think about it. And then they probably had to fail a bunch of times and maybe get some help. But eventually, we had a wheel. Then they turned into tires, right? And eventually we have these crazy things that I'm not sure if they're the best invention in the world, but I use mine every day. And also, you're around the world, and we're talking like through a screen. That was an idea. Someone had a creative idea, and had they not thought of that, somebody else probably would have. But you get the idea. It's your birthright to create. even if it's just for you, especially if it's just for you. If you feel like you want to, you definitely should.
Mhm.
That's my homily here.
I totally agree. And it's your birthright to enjoy. You don't have to be the best of the best at everything. You can just enjoy. I do this because I like it. I do this because it makes me feel good. Put that on your happy list, as the manifesting coach extraordinaire Laura St. John would say. Put it on your happy list. What makes you light up? What puts a gentle smile on your face? And I will talk a little bit before Brad continues about the school system. Back in the day, we were, as children, school children, introduced to all sorts of musical instruments. I chose the cello immediately and was told that my hands were too small. I wonder what kind of cello they had back then for children. Um, and I am 5'9". My mom is 5'1", and somehow I did end up with her hands. I don't know how that worked out. So since that day, I have wanted to take a cello lesson, and I have not as of yet. However, that's on the goal list in 2026. Another interesting synchronicity, Brad's wife, Christy, played the cello in childhood.
What?
She must have amazing hands. So that's the thing. It's like there's certain things that may have changed our minds as children or even as adults, where we intuitively knew we wanted to try something and something dissuaded us. And I think that's what this call is also about, to just go out and try. Regardless of whose opinion or what people think you're capable of. Interesting short story after that. I went to a Christmas concert, high school performance this weekend. Of course, I zoned in on the two cellists and they were excellent, but the ones playing the bass in the back caught my eye. There was two tall people playing the bass and one person who was rather short, and just their face was just above the base of the instrument and was reaching up to play. And my fifth grade self went, whoa, you can do that. Even now, I'm 55. And my fifth grade self was like, if they can do that, wow. So look for inspiration outside of you and inside of you. And Brad's EFT tapping and Jim's sound healing and my work with trauma relief, that can all help you get there. But also just the willingness to try. And it's okay if you're good, and it's okay if you're not.
Yeah. There's a great quote from Pablo Picasso who said, all children are born artists. The challenge is staying an artist as you grow up because we get so many messages about, you know, if you're not good enough at it, then you shouldn't do it. And you know, I've been a wannabe musician for a very long time. I own dozens of instruments. You know, then I look at Jim, who does the whole Dave Grohl thing. Oh, I go from the being the drummer of a band to being the lead singer and guitarist of a band. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, after 20 years, I still can, you know, I can barely get from one chord to another. But it's just something I do every day as a creative outlet, just, you know, without any expectations of ever being a rock star. It's good for the brain. Creative endeavors are really good. And as you were saying earlier, Jim, we want to make something. It's our birthright. We are creative individuals. We're creating all the time. You know, whatever it is, whether we're, you know, writing a book or making a poem or making a song or making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, we're creating all the time and giving ourselves that permission. And then and so that in itself has all kinds of healing properties for us as human beings.
And even just the way we wear our hair, how we dress, I mean, Brad, you're a big art history fan, so am I. You have your Michelangelo in the background, and just it's expression. So you don't have to be, I still retain the same drawing ability as, my kindergarten self. It has not progressed. I'm okay with that. So it's like, we all are good at some things, and we don't have to be good at everything. Um, but if we could talk about what you both are very good at and started out at and then morphed into, just to talk about the creativity into the healing arts. And then we can, kind of, because I'm really impressed with both of you. And Brad mentioned a little imposter syndrome with Jim's musical expertise. I had a little imposter syndrome with Brad and Jim's expertise too. So that also is something that we all deal with. It's kind of a universal thing. Music's a universal language. I think the imposter syndrome is a universal challenge, which we can, help heal through, talking about it and also tapping and doing sound healing and trying things.
Yeah. So Jim, how did you become a professional musician and then transition from that into the healing arts?
I knew early on, I was fortunate to know that I was going to be in music. The problem was I sucked at it. I was really, really bad. And that makes sense because I was 12. Um, Family didn't have a whole lot. There weren't like music lessons early on, but I had the will. And so in the States, we had this thing back in the 80s called Columbia House Record and Tape Club. And so you could get 12 albums for a penny. I had one. I had a penny, and I sent my penny, and I got all these records. Now, what I didn't know is that I had to buy like 10 more records over the course of the thing. And anyway, my mom was mad, but she got over it. Um, so I knew early, and because we didn't have a lot, I borrowed some drumsticks from the band room at my high school, and I would listen to records, and I would just play in the air. I would just play air drums, and I did this for about 3 years. There's no drum set, there's nothing but headphones and AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. Um, and by the time I got a drum set, I got a job at Burger King, earned enough money to buy a little drum set. I knew how to play pretty much because I was already doing all of the coordination for 3 years. Like I knew where my foot was supposed to go and where my hands were supposed to go. So it was an easy transition. And for me, it was I've been a person who's had anxiety for as long as I can remember. And for me, it was I didn't have this word back then, but it was my coping skill. It was the thing that made me feel like myself again. Um, and so I knew like this, I like how I feel when I do this. This is probably what I should just be doing all the time. Fast forward, I went to University of Pittsburgh for classical music performance, and I met the people that would go on to form Rusted Root there. We started in Pittsburgh in 1990. We got popular within about 2 years in the city. We got we did a showcase at a place in Cleveland, and there was a record person there, and they took our cassette tape back to New York, and a year later they called back and they said, "Hey, we want to sign you." And it was the song "Send Me on My Way" that was the thing that was catching everybody. Um, and we went on to playing with all my heroes. We played with Led Zeppelin, Page and Plant from Led Zeppelin, Carlos Santana for a couple of summers, the Allman Brothers, the Grateful Dead. Like every dream I ever had like came true over and over again. Fast forward to the year 2000, my wife and I started having a family. Um, we had one, two, then three babies, and once there were babies everywhere, being on the road was just not cutting. I couldn't bear being away from them, and so I decided to get out, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had to get out. That was the first step. A week later, I got this invitation from a person who knew I just left the band, and they said, if I could create a position for you at St. Francis where you could come up and build us something, would you consider it? And I'm like, dude, I don't even have my bachelor's degree finished. He said, well, you have to go back and get it, and I'm going to cover for you. He actually did this, and by that winter time, I had completed my 12 credits at Pitt. I got this job. I didn't know how to teach, and I kind of learned on the job. But he had seen me facilitate. I was doing drumming workshops, and he saw me facilitate. And he's like, "You know how to do this. I'll show you all the other stuff that goes around that." It's been about 22 years now that I've been doing this. So never know where life is going to take you. But being here at the university, it made me have to do the research and to understand. I know that music and drumming and sound make me feel good, but I had no idea why. And it was in that research that I started to come to the idea that, this is not common knowledge. And I bet people, if they knew this, would look at music differently. They would start to see why they feel like they feel. And then when you know why, you can make better decisions about what you do. And that's part of that's what we'll do today. I'll try to demystify a little bit of what happens when we do a sound healing exercise.
And in the last, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 years, that the whole polyvagal system has become more known, and has that when you started to become aware of that, is like, oh yes, of course, this totally makes sense now. How
Dr.
sound
Borges's
affects it.
research, it was some of the first that I looked at, and I realized how brilliant the guy is. He's been doing it for decades, and like he's been shouting like, hey, you gotta look at this. You gotta look at the vagus nerve, like
Yeah.
for decades. And it was only like in these last, like you said, the last 5 to 10 years where people are going, hey, we should look at the vagus nerve. Yeah. But he's at the forefront of that. He's a really, really, really good guy.
Yeah, my good friend Dr. Peta Stapleton, who's one of the lead researchers in EFT work, she's a university professor in Australia,
Nice.
has been working with Dr. Stephen Porges
Great.
on the interaction of EFT with the vagus nerve.
Yeah, he is connected with a company that they're good friends of mine. They're called Unite. And if there's any practitioners out there, so social workers or psychologists, if you don't know about, they have a thing called the Safe and Sound Protocol. It is so it's Unite. I forget what the exact. It's UNYTE, Unite. And the Safe and Sound Protocol helps people who are hard to reach in therapy with all the different traumatic events, and it helps them to recalibrate the vagal system from the middle ear. Right? They do it with this protocol that it takes a few months to get through, but it helps people who are currently kind of unavailable for talk therapy become more available, and also just reducing their anxiety. They're really excellent people as well.
And that's impressive, Jim. And thank you for sharing that about your anxiety. Sometimes when we look at, what, we would call rock stars, or, experts in their profession, we tend to think, oh, they have it all together all the time. And, no, they're unstoppable. And,
Nope.
just sharing that you had anxiety and what you did with it. And I think a lot of people gravitate towards music in some way, shape, or form, and don't necessarily know how they're helping themselves. They just know that it feels good and sounds good. My family background is just, full of war. I have my great grandfather was killed in World War I. My father and his siblings and my grandparents fled from World War II in Europe. My mom's side, I had 4 great uncles that fought for America in the war. So it's just a lot of that in the background. And, they all had to go stoically through it. Well, we had 3 generations of anxiety, and I definitely, since birth, have felt that, I think, and gravitated towards 80s music, rock music. My dad gravitated towards incredibly loud classical music, even when picking me up from school, which was at the time quite embarrassing, but it was that loud music, the rhythm, that's how both my father and I coped a lot. And it's interesting because I'm from Cleveland. You mentioned the Cleveland connection. So I think that is something that I would like also out of this discussion, is that we all have some generational trauma to certain degrees, and we all deal with some kind of anxiety or something. And it's really, really cool how music can help. And then also really extra cool if we learn why it helps. Like, it's an extra bonus to understand the mechanics of it. And, I even in college, I did not understand statistics at all. And so I got out of statistics by being able to do a presentation on Beethoven and mathematics. And so I was able to explain the relationship. That's the first subject in my life where I could not understand a thing, statistics, and then morph that into, okay, let's talk about classical music and mathematics. So there's workarounds. If there's something that really is challenging for you, there are workarounds where you can express and create and be successful, even if you have a subject or a situation that's really, really challenging. So I think there's just, once you go down the rabbit hole of creativity and music and healing arts, it's a great rabbit hole to go down. And there's so much to the science behind it is fascinating as well.
Yeah, and the arts are so healing I mean, all art has some. That's why we love looking at paintings. That's why we love listening to music, and particularly with music because we feel it in our bodies. We aren't the Cartesian split doesn't exist. There's this idea that there's a head and there's a body, and the two never the twain shall meet. We're connected, and so we feel something very visceral. I this is why I use tapping. I mean, so you could say I'm a drummer. This is percussion. I have just very tiny drumsticks, and I tapping on the body, using the body as the drum. But it's taking these things into the body where it's stored. As Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says about trauma, the body keeps the score. And so, the techniques that we're using to, recognize the healing property of the arts, and then having an artistic background. So, as a lot of folks who watch my channel may have heard me say at some point, I started as an actor, and went to Hollywood to be a movie star after I had traveled the world doing theater. Went to be a movie star as one does. But I met a woman, fell in love, and got married. And yeah, when I had kids on the way, it's like I might need a real job. So instead of getting like a dependable paycheck, I became a hypnotherapist because I'd always been fascinated with the power of the mind. But it still required having to find your own money. But but it was doing that, and it was really great because having been a classically trained actor, and I'd studied in London, had a degree in theater. So going into hypnotherapy, I already had the trained voice for it. So it really helped with that in terms of again going in putting out videos on YouTube. Being a trained film actor, it's like, a lot of people are very uncomfortable. So on camera, it's like falling off a log for me. And but also the having spent so much time doing theater and so much Shakespeare, the vocabulary so that the words come more easily. So having these backgrounds that each of us has, the training that we have in artistic endeavors opens up other possibilities in the healing work. Yeah, so just having that openness and that allowing the creativity to flow through that, as we've talked about, that gets shut down at an early age. And there's so much programming to get, no, don't have a creative thought. Just do this as we tell you, this and this and this. And I think for us as human beings, there is something missing. It's like, but I know because we are creative individuals. We want to be expressive, and and as we do, it helps us in all kinds of different areas. Even if you're not going into the healing arts, if you're working in corporate America, you know, some artistic classes could, it opens up our ability to have those creative ideas come through that, the next $1 million idea that most of us shut down because it's not going to be perfect. So, most of us have tons of great ideas that we never allow ourselves to give birth to
And on
because
the flip side, if you're in an industry like I just was, I think a little bit more too chocolate and sprinkles for vanilla corporate world. So I felt I was the perpetual square peg in the round hole there. But I think if you do kind of feel stifled in your profession, I think the EFT and sound healing and trying creativity outside of that can help you discover what you really want to do. And I really I liked there's a description of creativity, imagination, innovation, connection, and I'd also offer the word compassion. There's no, I don't have the statistics, obviously, because, but I do a lot of research, and I was interested in learning, was it just me, or are there a lot of people in the creative arts that are deeply empathetic and compassionate? Regardless if they go into the healing arts, it just seems like even with like bands like Metallica, who have helped thousands of people, in myriad ways. And you have people, the actors or writers, or even people that are creative in the corporate world or tech or wherever else. It seems to go hand in hand a lot of the times. There's that creativity and the empathy and the compassion. If you could speak to that a little bit.
And I would say, even if you are in the creative arts, you are in the healing arts, because we derive healing from looking at a beautiful painting, from listening to a beautiful song, from watching a play, from watching a movie. I mean, that's part of the reason that we go to the arts. And unfortunately, here in America, we don't have quite the same respect for the arts that some older countries do. But yeah, so I would say any artist is in the healing profession, just not necessarily by definition.
Yeah, and then in turn, it can be healing for ourselves as well. And then sometimes, the pressures of the business and things like that get in the way. I think with Jim, I just find it so fascinating. Your story, I don't know how much you want to share, but just the healing journey that you were on, but also the power of the voice and just the humming sound. With Brad, it's the speaking and the touch.
Yep.
And then with Jim, just the humming sound. I actually was leading a trauma relief session for some folks down in Texas online, and I played them your 11-minute, the EAM video, as I call it.
Yep.
And everyone had the same reaction. The initial reaction was, huh, I feel lighter, just like instant. It's just like it literally just lightens you up. And there's so much more to it, but that initial reaction that they had was the same exact reaction that I had. I just found that really magical.
It's a beautiful thing. It reminds me of how a really good song is. Like, people hear it and then go, "Oh yeah." And then there's, the other 99.9% of songs that aren't as great. And it's like, "Oh, that's nice." It's kind of like that. So when we were talking about creativity, for me, one of the requirements that I have for myself before I can make anything is that I have to feel comfortable. I have to feel grounded. I can't be in my anxiety because my anxiety is it's a survival response, right? And the higher I go up in that response, the less available I am to do anything other than try to save my own life, even if there's no actual lion chasing me. So what sound does is it leverages vibration uh, in you from the inside. So maybe we'll just kind of get into this because we have to go
Sure.
into
Yeah.
we'll do a technique.
I was just
I'll,
gonna say, so what you're talking about, it's like, well, that seems like
let's just
an
do that.
organic.
Yeah. And remember, just disclaimer, Jim mentioned we don't all have to have a good voice. I do not. So if you hear someone out of tune, that's me, but we'll keep going.
Well, here's the thing. This doesn't cure anything. All right. This is not some magic bullet. What it does do is to help you regulate your nervous system. And it does that by stimulating, you probably have heard of the vagus nerve, that is right here. So if you get your fingertips like this and just put them very gently on the sides of your neck. And what we're going to do is we're going to inhale a full breath And as we exhale, just make a humming sound, the entire length of how long you would exhale. And what's going to happen is we'll all sound different, and that doesn't matter. But the vibration, you're going to notice some vibration in your fingertips, and I want to see if that's true. So let's try it out. We're going to take a nice big breath in, and then we just hum. We're going to do a few more. If you get dizzy, that's your signal to stop. You've had enough. Okay? Big breath in. Close your eyes if you want. Breath in. Let's try two more if you're able. And last one, if you're able. So from here, just breathe. I know we're on a YouTube live and we're talking a lot, but just take a moment without doing anything but breathing. The invitation is just to notice what, if anything, feels different now than just a few moments ago when we started the exercise. And if you find something, go ahead and just pop it in the chat. Whatever it is, there's no right answer. As you think about that, I can just share that when we stimulate the vagus nerve, again, we do this on our own. We don't need a little device to do it for us. The voice is actually really good at it. It helps the vagus nerve to send signals to the brain that, first of all is well. And it does that because of two things. The actual vibration, so that little friction that happens on the nerve. And the second part is that the nature of humming requires that we exhale super slowly. And that one thing, slowing down your exhalation, is something you could use anytime you have anxiety. Even just slowing down the exhalation, after a few minutes, you'll notice things start to drop in and you start to feel more of yourself. But when we add the humming, that friction, it stimulates that nerve and helps that effect to happen a whole lot faster. So it's more of a fast track to getting to regulated nervous system state. So that regulation, this is like, I call it home base, science word, homeostasis. This is like that part of our consciousness where we are at our best. So we do our best work when we're not super hyped up. We can remember more. I don't know about you, but when I'm in my anxiety, I am not nice to be around, right? Because we're fighting for our lives, and at least in our nervous system. So if you've had that experience where you weren't nice to somebody when you're anxious, give yourself a break, right? This is your nervous system telling you that, hey, we got to do something, and it's just trying to protect you, right? It's not broken. It's doing its job. Sometimes, though, it does that job too well, and that's where these exercises come in. I know Brad's exercises do some of this stuff too. It's super important. And to me, whatever you use, whatever works, is like, this is all good stuff.
Yeah, we get into that fight or flight. The amygdala says we're in danger, and the prefrontal cortex, our rational creative mind, shuts down. So, this is the problem for so many of us. We wait until we're stressed out to start to like work on a project. And it's like you've just lost so much of your ability to come up with creative ideas. What you were saying earlier about being in that calmer place to be able to let it flow through. We are channels for creativity. So we were saying earlier about everything that we see, it's coming, from source through us. And so often when we're stressed out, it's thinking of a channel like a hose. It's like a crimped hose. Only a few trickles get through. And so using these processes to calm us down, and we then are in a much better place to allow that to flow through us.
And also when we talk about anxiety, we talk about, being under stress, we don't always think, okay, this is affecting my blood pressure, my digestive system, my immune system, my heart rate, there's my, even my circulation, but also connection to others. If you're that anxious, it's very hard, even if you're trying very hard, you feel disconnected, with depression, anxiety, you don't, relationships, things don't flow as they should. And especially when I get anxious, I'm all about avoiding. I'm out of there. I'm like this. So I have to bring myself back to the present. And I wish, the prior generations and those who faced wars and conflicts and, natural disasters from generations ago had these techniques. It makes me feel a bit sad that, my previous generations in my family didn't have them, but they did have music. And you do notice in times of war, some of the best literature, music, art can come out of such times of intense trauma, intense stress. And that's where creativity heals. So if for those of us who are fortunate enough not to be facing war, or for those who are, combining the healing arts and creativity. And for those facing just a tough job, or, worrying about grocery bills, worrying about anything, healing arts first, and then, expressing yourself creatively or vice versa, can possibly bring you relief now, keep you healthy physically and mentally, and also open up paths that you never would have thought of had you not tried these things on a consistent basis. So I think that the combination of the two is very powerful. And if you can't afford, to buy paints, or I'm still wondering how to buy a drum set someday, they're pricey. But if there's the free museum days, I would highly suggest that to everyone, even if you're worried about grocery bills, even if you're worried about your job, go to the free museum exhibit or the free concert, or, something that is in your area that is accessible. And online, yes, online, obviously, that's how we're connecting. But at some points, I think getting offline and back into ourselves and making that eye contact, which has become harder, even, for me after the pandemic, going offline too, and doing healing arts and creative pursuits, having that balance between the two, and going into this year thinking, okay, the country's stressed, a lot of things around the world are stressed, but in previous history times when things were intense, amazing creativity came out, amazing healing came out of those times. And now we have the power and the tools to heal from the previous generational traumas and prevent future ones. So I think this is a very powerful combination, the healing arts and creativity.
It reminds me of what you're saying. A lot of the training I've had is with indigenous music. I've had teachers from different parts of Africa and South America, Native America, and one of the things that I've come to understand about all these older societies is that all of them used really similar things. All of them have drums. All of them have rattles. All of them dance, usually in some sort of a circle. All of them use music as a place to come together where it's not just performance, it's everybody doing it together. A way to think about it, when we engage in some sort of creativity, it's a place for us to put our energy. It gives us a spot to transmute whatever may be challenging energy maybe into something beautiful, maybe not, but it's a way to move it out of your body so that you don't have to carry the whole weight of it every day. And for me, that's what music has been. Music has been that, creating things, writing songs, creating programs, making educational things. For me, all those things are creative. Um, and just, I guess one of the themes we're really hammering today is give yourself permission, right? Allow it to happen. If you feel compelled, that's the signal. You don't need anyone to invite you. Hey, come on, come do this, right? Just start, whatever, in whatever way makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely the whole what both of you were just talking about the sharing the artistic experience with other people. It's like that's like why we like going to concerts. And say, "Ah, I'm just going to sit and listen to the radio." No, we enjoy because we have this visceral experience with the arts, and it could just be going to a museum and looking at a painting. I stood there in a room where folks are looking at a Van Gogh, and as we take it in ourselves, because everything's energy, we're connected. And we're certainly doing this right now with everybody who's with us live right now, no matter how far away we are. We've got folks in Europe and Africa and all over, um, but we're still connected. But there's definitely something when we're in a room together and can more powerfully feel that experience that has such a healing effect to it.
Yeah, and studies show, those that sing together, you kind of get in sync with each other, and blood pressure and heart rate and everything kind of equalizes, and you're all literally on the same wavelength. And also, preventative medicine, healing arts, creative arts, listening to music. You don't have to create music, just listening to music. I just read a study that it reduces your chance of getting dementia, just listening. So, why not do that? Sure, you want to listen to it, in the car or online or something, but getting together. And for the younger generations that tend to kind of isolate at home or social, do this through social media, sometimes maybe it's a good idea to kind of get out, together and do things. And same thing for the older generations and intergenerational relationships, and bringing, like, I personally still believe that Generation X had the best music. However, I know that's up for debate, but just introducing and talking about our music when we were growing up, talking with their, about different generations, it's a way to connect. Music is universal. And yeah, Jim's right. If you look back, through the beginning of time, how sound and voice and movement have helped people. So, I know people get busy and we get very hooked on scrolling. I know I can do that. But making the time to do the creative stuff and the healing part, and especially the practice, the consistent practice. Brad, you'd mentioned on your videos recently, the consistency matters too.
As a daily thing, yeah. And we get so much into our heads. The scrolling is in our heads, although it affects us physically. We don't pay attention to that, but it does affect us physically. And that's why the drumming and the dancing, from the much earlier on, and less so over time, human beings were very connected to their physicality and recognize the importance of that and the healing benefits of that. And as we have evolved in some ways, intellectually, maybe, and gotten more into our heads and less in our bodies. So, so Melanie, you were going to take us through a process.
Sure. What I do with my trauma relief, I kind of do a mixture. I was certified, as I said, by Dr. James Gordon, who's a Harvard educated founder of the Center for Mind Body Medicine. He's been working with people who faced war since the 1990s, Kosovo and other areas. He is a healing pioneer, a psychologist who also loves music. Him and his colleagues taught me and 149 others at the start of the Ukrainian war. I had pushed for a program, and he created a program to help Ukrainians. And there's a theme throughout my life global. So I love that this call is global. I just have always had interest in other people's cultures and music and languages. So this is amazing. And on that, on the training, because we had to do it via Zoom, because there was 150 of us from around the world. For the Ukrainian trauma relief program, we had Ukrainians, Poles, Moldovans, this American, a couple other Americans, people from Ethiopia, people from Gaza. A lot of people were on this call. And once you have 150 people going out in the world and going into Ukraine and other areas and where Ukrainians were teaching these healing tools, it just spreads. And that's the same thing with your work, Brad, EFT, and Jim, your sound healing. It's a kind of a train the trainer approach in one sense, because I can learn what Brad and Jim have taught me, and I've incorporated some of that into the work that I did when I learned from Dr. James Gordon. So everyone can take some of this and share it with someone, and then we can just kind of make a global movement just through citizen and cultural diplomacy, and also just sharing what we've learned. So I've taken some of Dr. Gordon and the Center for Mind Body Medicine techniques, one of which is called shake dancing, which I don't think we'll do today, but it involves getting up and really literally shaking it out. Because as Jim was saying, yeah, exactly. You're just shaking. You kind of stand up and you bounce on your, bend your knees a little bit and bounce. And then you just move whatever way feels good for about 6 minutes. And you do that to music. And then you pause for a minute and then you kind of sway. And for those folks in the audience who are ADHDers, who might be anxious, meditation by itself can be near impossible. But if you do moving when you're meditating, sometimes your brain just turns off for a while and you can literally meditate. So that is one of the techniques I teach in my sessions, but because of Zoom and YouTube on my laptop, I just don't even want to go there. So I'll do something a little bit easier, which is the chest bilateral cross tapping. So you just take your hands like this, and it's very simple, and you just tap alternately. And this is great because it's so simple. You can take it anywhere. If you're in a movie theater and you're having an anxiety attack, or if you're getting ready to do a corporate presentation, or if you're doing YouTube live for the first time, like someone here, you can do this, but you can also use it for trauma, because what this does, this kind of bilateral tapping, what Jim was saying with your voice happens with this tapping. So it's like you're touching, you're making contact with yourself, getting back to your body, because so often when we're stressed, we tend to disconnect. So we're tapping and we're just getting to basic calm, like, okay, I'm here, I'm okay. And this tapping is just slowly slowing my voice down. And I'm calm, and it's all right. And within about a minute or two, you can feel a shift. And there's relaxation, and all is well. And you can do this for a minute to about 3 minutes, just to take the edge off if you really need to calm down. But if you've been through some trauma, 5 to 10 minutes a day would be very helpful, because this helps to reduce PTSD, anxiety, and stress. Okay, so just take a minute to breathe, see how you feel.
That feels good.
Yeah, you can really notice a difference. And I like to follow that up with havening, which is kind of like a self-hug, which we all needed, especially during the pandemic. But this is also kind of a reassuring feeling. So you take your hands again and you put them up by your shoulders, and you're just going to brush down. So you're just brushing down. You can see my shoulders to your hands. And again, like what Jim and Brad do, this involves touch, but it also involves the voice. So you can either count, or you can say, I'm safe, I'm calm, I'm secure, and you can keep repeating that. Or another option is to hum. So you have your voice again and the touch. So you're connecting you're soothing, you're relieving. And this can also reprocess traumatic memories, PTSD, anxiety, stress. And your body's getting the signal, I'm okay. I'm really calm. I'm secure. I'm getting a little boost of oxytocin from my self hugs here, and all is well. Take a minute. And that can just center you when you need a bit of calm and centering. Or if you do it daily, it can really help for those long-term traumas. But I find that both are very, very helpful. And how did that make you feel, Jim and Brad and everybody out there in the global land? How did everyone feel?
I'm ready for
Well,
it.
yeah.
I'll be right back. I'm going to just take a nap.
Yeah.
And that's good, especially, a lot of people have trouble falling asleep when they're under stress or getting back to sleep. I use these techniques, and actually, Jim, I use your technique because I'm part of the menopausal 3 a.m. club for all the women out there. Hello. 3 a.m. like clockwork, and doing Jim's breath work, just the breathing in and humming out, breathing in and humming out, or just the beginning of that EAM video that you do, just the sound EAM several times. I can go back to sleep and sleep soundly until the morning. So these practices, even though they seem so simple, they really do work.
Beautiful. That was lovely.
Yep.
Brian, what about you? I know you got so much good stuff here. You got your own YouTube channel and everything.
Yeah, and we're out of time, so there's no time for tapping. But thanks very
Okay.
much for everybody. And well, I'll come back on. I'll do the encore. Um, totally understand for anyone who may have said, "Oh, I can spend an hour with these folks," and you have to go someplace. I'm going to do a quick tapping around here, and you can come back and watch the replay. The replay will be here for everyone. And with the sound healing that Jim just did, and the havening, and the bilateral that Melanie just did, you're all probably in a really good place right now. But I'll do some tapping for those that are still here. So I'll invite everyone to close your eyes, take a deep breath in and hold it, and let it go. And just following your breath through your body, allow yourself to be aware of what's going on inside, what you feel physically and what you feel emotionally. Notice if there's anything that feels like, I wouldn't mind healing that. And also allow yourself to be aware of anything that might come up around the subject of creativity and where you might block yourself creatively. I always say that the extent to which we're not experiencing what we say we want tends to be the extent to which we're resisting it. So whether it's resisting healing or resisting creativity, just allow yourself to be aware of any resistance that might be in there. Take a deep breath, open your eyes, and then if you're not follow along, if you're not already familiar with tapping, then you can find information down below. But for right now, just taking your fingertips, tap where I tap, and go ahead and repeat back what I say. Even though I might have some stuff to release, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though I might have some stuff to release, I choose to love and honor myself. Even though I might have some stuff to release, it might be stuff that I want to heal. It might be stuff that limits my creativity. Because I want to feel as good as possible. And there might be stuff in the way. And even though I might have some things to release, I choose to deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. and maybe anyone else who might be involved, all the way back through generations, because I choose to feel that free. All this stuff that it would be good to release. All this stuff that is stuck in my body. All this stuff that's stuck in my mind. All this stuff that limits my well-being. All this stuff that might limit my creativity. If there's any part of me that says, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, that's a misunderstanding. It just doesn't feel safe to see myself as creative. All this stuff that I'd like to heal is there trying to keep me safe. I choose to love and appreciate all these parts of me that are just trying to keep me safe. And I choose to be open to the possibility that these fears might be based on misunderstandings. With creativity, I may be afraid of being judged. That's not a misunderstanding. People are judgmental, but they're going to judge me whether I'm being creative or not. Even the best artists are judged. So I'm healing this fear of judgment. I'm healing whatever gets in my way. And I can allow myself to do so creatively. And as I release this stuff that no longer belongs, as I release what doesn't feel like peace, I am more clear-headed. I'm much more open to better ideas that benefit me and the world. So I'm healing for the entire planet, in body, mind, and spirit. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and just let that settle. Just allowing yourself to process all the stuff that, both in what things that might have come up during the conversation and things that might have come up and moved around during each of the practices that we each shared. And hopefully you're feeling a whole lot better. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you too for doing this. Thanks for coming up with the idea, Melanie, and all of the work that you have done in formulating what it could look like.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this. This is really, really great. And I like that you're also representing because I can speak to how the tools help for women and girls, but I think you and Jim are great representatives as to why and how this can be really great for men and boys too. So, we help everybody, but I think there's a need for, more approachability and accessibility for men and boys. And I think you're great role models for that. And thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank all of you.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. I'll be doing more live tapping on YouTube on Friday. Hopefully you guys can join me for that. But for right now,